Yeah, so Jamie, take it away.
Yeah. So, gang, today what we're going to present to you is how Flowbot AI works. And why we thought this is important is mostly because I thought it was really cool when Wayne presented it to me. Because in this session, we're going to actually get under the hood and we're going to describe Flowbot AI in some really relatable terminology. And the reason I thought this was important for you guys as our partners to see is that, your customers are going to need to know, and we all are not Flowbot experts. I know I am for sure not. So I know when Wayne first presented this, it really, really helped me kind of put Flowbot AI into a different perspective. Another cool thing is that this is also going to be a course that we're going to add in RingLogix University. So as always, our webinars do go on our YouTube channel. But if you have someone on your team that's gonna maybe would benefit from this and they don't want to go to YouTube for some reason, it will be part of the Flowbot AI courses. So Wayne graciously created this and we've been kind of trialing this training. So Wayne, if you want to move to well, the next slide is just our picture. So I'm going to kick it off and I'm going to wrap up our session today. Wayne's going to be doing most of the content today. But if you don't know Wayne, he's right here and he's our VP of Partner Operations. And if you don't know me, my name's Jamie and I'm the manager of onboarding and growth here at RingLogix. So but we'll go to the next slide. So the why for today, and I know I already got into it slightly earlier, is your customers will be asking you about AI, right? And I feel like the first time I heard about AI, I was like, it was more like Chat GPT and things like that. And there's a difference between what a voice AI agent is and what a Chat GPT is, and how we use it. So I feel like this presentation is going to give you guys an easy, and girls, by the way, an easy way to break down what a voice AI agent is. And Wayne used some really cool terminology. So we're also going to show you some competitive differentiators, like what makes the product you're selling better, because there are some distinct differentiators between other products that are out there in the marketplace. And at the end of the day, we just want you to be able to talk about this and sell it with more confidence than maybe you can when you got on this call. So Wayne, since you are the master of the creation of this, I'm going to kick it back to you to get into it.
Thank you, Jamie. Yeah, so I think Jamie gave you some really good reasons why these things are important. I'm gonna, kind of give some other reasons here as we go along, because these components work together to provide the final outcome that the customer is looking for, right? And so when you start to think about how you're going to utilize each of these things to deliver a result, you want to know how they work independently, but then we're also going to talk about how they work together. So an agent is comprised of a few key components: the LLM, and I'm sure you guys have all had experience with LLMs at this point, right? ChatGPT or Claude or whatever your favorite LLM is. So a good way to think about that is that that's just the brains. That's where the reasoning happens. It's where the generation of the response happens. It's where a lot of the understanding of the conversation happens. And then we got what is the voice and voice activity detection side of things. And you can think about this as both the ears and the mouth, right? So it's managing the detection of the speech, and it's managing the turn taking when you've got a conversation. Who's speaking next is a really important thing, or who's speaking at the moment. And then it also helps to deliver the output. Prompts are the kind of fundamental instruction sets. And that is where we're going to have, call it the nucleus of what the agent is instructed to do, its identity, behavior, any kind of boundaries or conversational flows that that agent needs to be aware of. And then the knowledge base, not knowledge base like we traditionally talk about in IT. In fact, if you look at our knowledge base, we got several hundred pages worth of knowledge. But in the case of an actual knowledge base, it's more about the knowledge that that agent needs in order to do its job. And if I was giving an agent knowledge, I certainly don't want to give it 400 pages of my knowledge base to do its job. Um, Tools. This is the hands. This is where the action gets done. So think about this almost like a person, right? If our agent is talking to somebody and they need to, let's just say, log a ticket, well, that person would go to their computer and they'd start typing in. Well, in the same way, we have tools that are responsible for taking these kind of actions. So we're going to cover each of these components individually. The first being the large language model, because I think it's important to understand what's happening here and then kind of building out from there. The large language model or the LLM is where the reasoning occurs. And there's a lot of different kind of LLMs out there. You probably, if you switch from ChatGPT to Claude or to one of the others, you're going to see some differences, and I think it's even more um, pronounced when you see differences in a voice call because there's more sensitivities and things when there's an actual conversation going on. So the LLM on every call is going to first try and establish the caller's intent. What did that caller want? Sometimes callers are going to be sort of vague or it's not going to be well understood. The LLM is going to go through a process of clarifying that. It's going to apply the prompt instructions, and then it's going to decide on the knowledge that's required during that conversation or the tool that's required during that conversation and what those things that those tools are supposed to do. And in this case, parameters, right? What kind of parameters are needed? What kind of parameters are passed? And then, of course, it's going to generate a response, and you want that response to be on brand. Um, if you have lag in that conversation, it's a very awkward conversation for the end caller, right? When the end caller calls, I think all of us and all of our customers want that very natural sounding experience because nobody wants to get a call from their customer saying, your agent is driving me nuts. Right. And frankly, I've experienced it. I'm sure all of you have at this point talked to a voice AI agent and just gone, oh, that's awful. Right. I just need to talk to a person. So there's a couple of things that we need to consider here when we're thinking about LLMs, right? To provide the best experience, we need low latency. We need an understanding of context, and context is an interesting thing because context is not always about the words being used, right? There's different intents and emotions. So I'll use Jamie. Jamie the other day calls me up and says, what are you doing? And that could be a very different call if Jamie would have called me up and said, what are you doing? Which was normally what I expect from Jamie. But there's very different intent or context around that, even though we're talking the very same words, right? And so it's important that when an agent is talking to a customer, that the cues, the vocal cues, such as pace and intonation or tone, and accent on certain words is picked up. So there's two methods essentially when it comes to LLMs in terms of how they deal with these things. There's the transcript first pipeline, and that's going to work like this. A caller speaks, the audio gets converted to text. The text gets sent to the LLM. Then the LLM generates its response, which is in text. That text gets converted back to audio, and then the caller hears the response. So the problem with this is you have latency, and a delay in any one piece of this just has a domino effect causing delays across the conversation. And then the vocal cues or signals are lost within that. Now, our approach has been to avoid that altogether. We know from early testing that the experience is just not going to be the kind of experience that our customers are going to accept, and I'm envisioned all sorts of support calls that we're going to have to deal with if we release something like this. So we went directly to a speech native LLM or a multimodal LLM. It's where the caller speaks and the audio is injected directly into the LLM. The audio is processed, the prompt is processed, and the context is understood. And that allows the LLM to give a faster response with all the conversational signals taken into effect. And closely tied to this is voice activity detection. So I go back a year and a half ago. Albert and I are in a auditorium, probably about 200 people in this auditorium, and we're working on one of the agents that we had created at that time. And there's 200 people in this auditorium, a lot of background noise going on. We're at a break. And my first guess was this just the agent was not going to understand what's going on because there was so much background noise. Cut right through it, right? Understood all of the background noise. Now, when you talk about traditional VAD, what it does is it examines about 32 milliseconds of a call and then makes a prediction on whether that caller is done speaking, right? That prediction is not always accurate because it's working off of, call it a segment of time as opposed to an understanding of the full conversation or of an understanding the context of what is happening, right? So if somebody is pausing to think, that may not be a pause in the conversation. So the agent has to understand the difference between the two. So traditional VAD, what you're going to see is there's a lot of cut off mid thought. There's also struggling with the background noise, and all pauses are just treated the same. It's just a gap in time. And a neural VAD, which is where the solution you guys are selling is based on neural VAD, and so it's gonna know when end of turn is. It's going to have a lot of resiliency when it comes to dealing with background noise. This is what creates a very natural conversation, and those stresses, those tones of voice, the cues that we mentioned earlier, those are picked up in the case of a neural VAD. So it just is that next level of where voice AI agents need to be in order to be accepted at the customer level, and for them to feel good that the customer experience that they're delivering with the voice AI agent is in fact an experience that their customers are going to enjoy. So prompting is a big topic, and you've got a whole world of prompt engineers, and we've got prompt engineers on staff, and so people who know this stuff down to really minute details for more advanced things. Not everything needs to be advanced, right? There's a lot of things you can do to create a nice, easy prompt, and having some good structure around the prompt is another training session. We're gonna do that. This is also one that's going to be available on RingLogix University. I haven't put it completely together, but in a prompt, it's the instructions, right? And so, what does this agent need to know? So you can almost think about it like the agent wakes up and says, "Okay, what do I need to do here? Oh, here's my name, here's my role. I got a persona and a voice tone, and I'm expecting to not do some things." And an example of that would be, this is a doctor's office, right? And you don't want your agent diagnosing people who are giving the agent symptoms, right? So you put some structure around the boundaries and what your anticipated conversation flow is. And, conversations can be a little messy. So, don't expect it to go in step 1, 2, 3, 4. But if you give the agent a bit of a reference, the agent will clearly understand where it's trying to get to and make some assessments of the steps to get to the end result. And then you got things like tools and knowledge rules. Those have to be reflected in the prompt. And that's usually going to be about telling the agent when they're going to use these things and how they're going to use these things. And I've got another training session that we're going to do next week, or it should be in RingLogix University next week, strictly on tools and strictly on knowledge base. And I'll get a little bit more into how tools and knowledge need to be incorporated in the prompt. And I'll have some examples in there to give you some good ideas around how to address those within your prompt.
Yeah, Wayne, maybe we'll even have you on next month's July's Tech Tuesday and you could do it live.
Oh, I should be so lucky.
You should sign you up.
Um, the knowledge base. Okay, so we've all heard the story about different agents who just went rogue, right? The lawyer who created a brief with made up cases. Those kinds of things can happen, and in the sense of a voice AI agent, what you want to do is you want to ground them uh, in the actual things it needs to know. So it in our case, and I'm going to use an example here, and this probably is true for most of you because I'm going to guess you all have customers, and we're all talking about support issues, and we all may look at a voice AI agent as being able to handle some tier one calls for us, right? So in our case, we're going to look at this and say, I got a bunch of SOPs. My SOPs have to instruct the agent how to respond under certain situations, right? I may have PDFs or documents. I may simply have frequently asked questions too, right? All of that stuff is things that the agent can absorb. And the way they do this is using RAG, is a retrieval augmented. I forget what it stands for.
Yeah, retrieval augmented generation system.
Generate, yeah, something to that effect. But really, what it is a database, and it's a database that allows the agent to quickly access it and make appropriate references. So what happens here is that the content is ingested, it's chunked down, and then it's embedded and stored in the vector database. So when the question gets answered, or the agent needs to get answers to a question, it can find the relevant chunks of information and then generate their answer. So it's all based on the facts. And just as a comment on knowledge, right? There's a thing is too much knowledge. And I think there's sometimes an expectation that if you throw a bunch of information at the agent will be able to sort out that information on the fly. What we found the most effective way to do this is you've got, I'm going to call it containers with sources, right? And when you're putting your agent together in the Flowbot agent panel, you'll see you've got categories and sources, but the container is just an easy way to sort of think about it. And you give the sources and the containers a description that allows the agent to know, go here when you're looking for this information, right? So there's a descriptive access that it has when it's looking at which source it's going to access, but also in your prompt, you're going to want to be specific as to which source the agent is supposed to use and under what conditions they use that source. Now, tools are going to work in sort of the same way, right? And a tool will be called during a conversation. So again, using this tech support example, the first thing that may happen is somebody calls in and says, hey, I got an issue, right? The agent is going to understand, okay, there's an intent here that they have an issue that they need resolved. And then the next step is, I'm going to go do a lookup. Who is this person? Does this person have an account with me? Are they a known customer? Or is this something completely different? Right. And if it passes that validation step, Then it goes on into a further, call it triaging of that situation. So it's asking potentially some questions to help establish the nature of that, the severity of that. And so this is where, we see the tool being called, and maybe in this case, I actually have multiple tools. So I have a verification tool. I may have a ticket lookup tool. I may have a ticket creation tool. So I may have a few different tools that I make available to this agent. We have some built-in tools. So built-in tools are things like warm transfers, right? I get a call from a customer, and that customer needs to be transferred to a human, but we want the human to have a summary of that call. A cold transfer is probably exactly what it sounds like to you guys, right? It's just the agent's dropping that call off at that extension or at that queue. Hang up, pretty straightforward, right? We're going to hang up the call. Query corpus is a tool that's used to access knowledge, right? When I talked about a knowledge base, the underlying architecture there is it's a corpus. And so when we use a query corpus tool, it's simply just suggesting that we're using the knowledge base or that RAG to answer the question. And then probably about July 10th-ish is our next release. We're going to have a set of built-in tools. Built-in tools will be one-click tools that you'll be able to provision to a service. Let's just say a calendar service, calendar, right? One click, you'll have to do the authentication, right? Like, so every system has a method to authenticate. You guys know about security, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here talking about, how it's important to have authentication. But you'll do the authentication within the Flowbot, or what will be Flow Builder tool, and that'll make the connection. And then you'll have a set of tools available to you with various parameters that you can decide to use. Workflow automation, there's a lot of people out there who have become accustomed to specific workflow tools. So something like an N8N or a Make or Zapier, those are probably your three biggest, with Zapier being the one that's been around the longest, the easiest to use, maybe the most limited in terms of its ability to handle interactive voice discussions. With N8N probably being the most complicated, but the most flexible, and it's also an open source product. So I know a lot of people kind of gravitate to that because it is a low cost tool that can do a lot of things, but the learning curve is a little steeper. So why would we want workflow automations? Well, let's just say we don't have the one-click tool you're looking for. Or another example might be we have the one-click tool you're looking for, but I'm looking for maybe more sophisticated workflows. There may be 3 or 4 applications. I'll give you a real simple example here. We're going to log a ticket into ConnectWise, right? So I got a ConnectWise workflow, and then I've got a subsequent SMS confirmation that I might send, right? So I may have an SMS workflow as well. And then I may want some kind of notification on, say, Slack or Teams, right? Or I may want that to then result in also an ability for somebody to look at a calendar and make a schedule, right? Like, so I can have all of these things sort of embedded into workflows. The thing you got to be maybe a little cognizant of is sometimes it's better to break down workflows so that they're not all bunched together into a single workflow, because that may just add too much latency, and you can be more directive and say call just this workflow, right, at this time. And then the next step would be, okay, call this workflow now. Let's just say the Slack notification now that we've got the ticket logged, right? So the point to this is you got a lot of flexibility with workflow automations. I think that the way I would sort of distinguish is mostly going to be comfort level for the most part, and whether the pre-built integration that you're looking for will be in the one-click tools. Our hope is to come out with, call it a bunch of them with regular delivery of new ones over time. Okay, so we talked about all of these components. Okay. I think it's helpful to look at this in context because it'll also help you understand if you've got to fine tune something or you've got to troubleshoot something to know where to go look first. And some of the stuff like the LLM, you really won't be looking in the LLM so much, but it'll give you a picture of like what's happening here. So let's just say a caller calls our IT service, right? They ask what's included in your managed IT plan. Okay, VAD understands that we've got a caller who's finished speaking. So the next step then is the LLM is going to interpret the intent. So it's ingested that audio, it understands the caller's intent, understands they want service details. Okay, now how does it go get service details? Okay, the instructions there in the prompt. It says get it from the knowledge base and it directs them to the appropriate knowledge base. And then we get the knowledge base obviously has that information. It pulls that information back. And by the way, if you're troubleshooting, you'll see in the transcripts when that call was, when that tool call or that knowledge query corpus was fired off, what it returned. So that would be, calling an easy way to see, am I getting the right response back based upon the question that was asked? And then the response is generated by the LLM and it speaks, right? Now the caller hears the response and naturally there would be does that answer your question or do you want to make an appointment? There would be other follow-up to that. But in a simple scenario, the VAD monitors for the caller's next turn and then hangs up if the caller is done. Okay. Also to be released in our next release, July 10th-ish. That's the tentative date at the moment. I think we're on track for that. We're going to look at multi-state stage orchestration. So call can go through and sometimes bounce through each of these. And so it doesn't necessarily go through these things in a sequential manner. But we have these, call it stages that might occur, right? There's a greeting of the caller. There's a qualification or collection of information. There's an answer or tool execution. There could potentially be some, I'm gonna call it if-then routing, and then there's a closing stage to our call. So the advantage here is that each can have their own prompt, their own voice, their own tools, and their own completion conditions. So it makes setting these things up easy in a way because I can just work on one piece, or I can just troubleshoot one piece, or I can just change one piece. I think we've all dealt with some of the frustrations. If I make a change in my prompt and I've got a big prompt, it may have some downstream effects that I didn't think about. And so now I've got to go read through the rest of the prompt to know, okay, I've got to make some additional changes further down the prompt. So this is an easy way to kind of break this into bite-sized pieces, but it also gives you more control. So there's a blessing and a curse to agents. The blessing is that the agents can reason and make decisions. They use probability to do these things, right? But the agent can also do some things you don't want it to do, right? How clear were my instructions? How much control do I have over that? And I use a kind of easy to understand example. I'm in New York, sitting in New York with my agent. I say, I need you to get to LA as quick as possible. Agent bolts out the door, goes to JFK, gets on a plane to LA, first plane to LA. Of course, it went first class and it charged my credit card for a whole lot of money. But it gets to LA, right? Got there as absolutely as fast as they can. Agent comes back. I said, well, that really wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I need you to get there fast, but I don't want you to float. I want you to drive. Agent goes out, goes to the rental car, gets in a rental car, and it takes off 90 miles an hour through New York, blowing through every stoplight on the way, right? Gets pulled over somewhere in Midtown, right? Like cops pull over the agent. Agent can't get any further. Agent comes back, says, okay, I tried. Um, so I didn't give it enough instructions, right? And this is the thing with agents. There are times where you want them to go make decisions, and there's times where you need them to follow the exact thing. And the structure here that you'll see having multi-stage orchestration allows you to have more control over individual stages at different points. You can exert more control or less control. So it's a very handy thing to have in your toolbox to be able to do both. So why does this architecture produce better results? Natural conversation, right? I think that's the first expectation that anybody is going to have if we're presenting this to the customer, particularly those who have had bad experiences, either personally or maybe even tried something. They're gonna say, wait, I tried that, it just didn't work. And so you're gonna have to one probably explain a little bit about the architecture and why a poor interpretation of voice AI agent was previously based off of text models, and now you would look at a multimodal LLM with neural net, right? Of course, the devil's in the details. They're going to want to hear it, so yeah, we're going to want to make that available to them. And then the good experience is grounded, accurate answers, right? That's where our knowledge base comes in. Tool architecture and workflow. This is where it says real action, but I'm going to say real value comes in. So I've sat through a couple demos, and in fact, one of the things I've seen is there's a number of people out there with AI receptionists, and AI receptionists can be a lot of different things. And I'm going to pick on the largest competitor in the UCaaS space. So RingCentral has an AI receptionist. I don't think it's very impressive in the sense that it doesn't deliver a lot of value to the customer. Can it answer calls? Yeah, absolutely. But can it do deeper things? Can it take an action? Can it deliver an outcome? And the way you kind of have to think about this is, can I produce something that delivers an ROI to the customer, right? So what does an ROI look like? Well, I make an investment in every call that comes in. Somebody answers that call. And let me use a healthcare company as the example. A call comes in, I have somebody who answers that call. That person then goes into a system, schedules, reschedules, takes whatever the next action is, right? So they're into another business system in order to complete that effort. And if you don't have that second piece, you still need the full length of that human's cloud capabilities. Whereas if you look at this and say, there are things that a human agent does every day that is low complexity, can easily be automated and allow that agent to go focus on things that are more valuable, or can save your customer from having to hire that next person because the capacity that they need, the human capacity that they need to tackle the calls is to address, like probably in a case of like tech support, you would expect somewhere between about 25 to about 30% of the tier one calls are ingestible by an agent. So that's a lot of things that a human does, taking information and retyping information into another system that a human's time can be saved from. And then, of course, predictable, right? Agents always show up for work. They don't call in sick. You can give them an appropriate tone or response, or the right wordings to say under certain conditions, and you should expect that it is going to do that nearly every time. So just a quick recap. We talked a little bit about LLM, VAD, prompt, knowledge base tools, and what each of those things mean. So we'll turn it over to you guys if there's questions or comments. We're happy to answer those. Let's see.
Chat is definitely open.
Okay.
Or do you want me to unmic, Wayne? Do you want me to let people answer questions in real time?
No, if you've got questions, just drop them in the chat. I'll try and answer them one by one. Um, yeah, there's a number of LLMs that are out there, and in fact, I think this question goes more to the question of pricing. Yeah, if you look at some people who are out there in voice AIs and provide a platform, the platforms a lot of times have a an a la carte pricing menu, right? So I choose my text to speech vendor. I choose my speech to text vendor. I choose my LLM, right? And all of those things bear a cost, a third party cost. So I think first thing I just say is, yeah, you can customize some things to fit. Now, there's a support question I have in mind. If I got a bunch of different text to speech vendors and I got a bunch of different LLMs that I've got deployed across different customers because I'm trying to get to a certain price point, I could end up in a few years with a lot of different customers with different configurations with variability across it. Even the same prompt used at each of those customers can have fairly significant differences. And then your cost. There's a cost risk to this, and in our business, I've been in MSP, and I've worked with MSPs now for over 20 years, right? And there's one thing I know as an MSP, I can't really often pass a surprise cost along to my customer. So if you're expecting your cost to be one thing, but one of your components is a bit more outrageous than you expected, and in most cases it's going to be the LLM is going to be the one that adds that additional cost. Then you're kind of stuck with that, and you're eating it. So it's one of those things you got to be really, really careful about. We've taken a different approach, trying to standardize on the best components, right? And trying to make the best components easily supportable and workable under the right environment. And so, I probably should also say this: uh, one cost, right? One easy cost. It's per minute based. There's no surprises baked into ours. There's no a la carte things because we chose the best components, but we're still giving you a price that is competitive with the worst components. So good news is best experience, great price. Okay, knowledge based tools. Okay, so tools are probably the thing we get the most questions about. So this particular question, I'm going to say, yeah, tools can be confusing, particularly if you don't know how to use tools. So our one-click tool is really the answer to this, meaning you'll go into the next version, you'll have an experience where you choose the particular, and I'm just going to use HubSpot. You choose HubSpot, and then you'll have underneath HubSpot some options on what you want to do. Create a ticket, update a ticket, look for a customer. Those will be the things that bring down the necessity of thinking about webhooks or APIs or using a tool like N8N. Now, I won't suggest that we're going to have all of these day one. We're trying to focus on the most important things. So if there are requests or things that you say, hey, I got several customers who are asking for this, and they use Salesforce, right? Obviously, Salesforce being the bigger one, that's really of interest. And if you're really interested in doing customized solutions, really N8N is probably the in my mind, it's the coolest tool because the variability or the flexibility with that tool is awesome. and make is probably the next best in my mind because still a ton of flexibility. Make comes at a cost though, whereas N8N is open source. But again, and if you're just getting new to these are there's a learning curve. And then I'll just say the third option is we do have a professional services team. We can help deliver a customer's scope of work if you get into a situation where you say, I don't even want to try, right? And just help me get it done. You're clearly the person who's representing yourself with that customer. As the seller, will help you how we can in the back end. So I don't see any other questions. You, Jamie?
No, I don't.
All right. Well,
I don't.
appreciate it. And yeah, Steve,
Oh,
we're gonna
go to
do
if
the
you want
next
to go to the
session.
last slide, Wayne, too. I do have a little PSA since we have a little time now. For everyone that's on the call. So we did, and Steve did make a comment, and thank you, Steve. He's like, bring on the next session as soon as you can. Well, Steve, the soon as I can would definitely be Tech Tuesday in July. So you might get your wish. I'll try to make it happen with Wayne. I probably have to sweet talk him a little bit, but I did want to let you guys know that we did switch up our calendar just for flexibility and and I guess more like to not be monotonous. But the first quarter of, or I'm sorry, the first month of every new quarter, we're going to do a Tech Tuesday. So as always, feel free to let me know your request for that. We did move our Tech 101, which you guys, most of you on this call maybe already know this, but Tech 101 is going to be the second month of every quarter. So that's where you can send your new hires, or if you want to pick up a refresher course, it's typically the same content every session. So feel free to sign your new hires up. We do have a new session called, and what would we decide to, Christina's Carrier, Christina's Carrier Corner. So Christina Armesto has been a team member with us for a really long time. She's been focused mainly on 10DLC the last couple of years because we all know how much fun that is. But it's Carrier Corner. The first session is going to be on kind of, kicking 10DLC's ass a little bit. But it's going to be more than that. She's going to get into sessions regarding like porting, best practices, pretty much things to do with like phone numbers, right? Carrier services. So that'll be a cool new addition to some of the things we try to help partners with, and that'll be the third month of every quarter. So that's kind of the cadence we're going to follow, until we decide not to do that. So, but that's going to happen for like the next couple quarters. So if you guys are interested, it's going to be Tech Tuesday in July. In August, it'll be Tech 101, and September. I had to say it all in a row just to remember that September was after August. But in September, you'll get Christina's Carrier Corner. So that's all I was going to say.
Thanks, Jamie. And to answer the question about bringing on the next session, you won't have to wait to the end of the month. I'm going to commit to doing the knowledge-based training and tools training next week with prompt training, hopefully with like the week after that. So
Yeah.
I'll be
So
dropping
Steve,
some.
I'll let you know when they're available then too in the RingLogix University. So when we get those completed, I'll ping you and let you know that they're ready for you. Cool. Well,
Okay.
thanks everyone. We'll go ahead and send the recording out when it's done, and a copy of this presentation deck for you too. So if you signed up and missed it, you'll get a copy of it. Okay.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thanks,
Bye
guys.
bye.
Bye.